It was one of those slow Saturdays. The kind where nothing's really expected of you except a clean car and maybe a trip to the hardware store if you're feeling ambitious. I had woken up around 8, made myself some coffee, Nora was still asleep, and figured I'd finally get the salt and grime off my car from last week's snowstorm. She mumbled something about catching up on reading, and I figured it'd be nice to let her sleep. I didn't rush. Took the long route to the car wash, drove through the nicer part of town, played a couple of old Wilco tracks on the stereo like I used to back in college. There was this easy stillness to the day. A quiet kind of contentment. Funny how that's usually when the cracks start to show, right in the middle of calm. When I got home, I wasn't expecting anything. No alarm bells. I wasn't suspicious or paranoid. I was just a guy with a shiny car and a fresh coffee. But the second I opened the front door, something didn't sit right. Not in a dramatic, movie-style way. Just a subtle shift. The air felt wrong. Like someone had been there who shouldn't have been. The back door was open. And not just unlocked, it was cracked. That door? We always keep it bolted even in broad daylight. Our neighborhood's safe, but Nora's the cautious type. She's the one who double-checks it before bed. Always has been. So for it to be open in the middle of the day? That was weird. I walked over and closed it gently, pressing the lock in with my thumb. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I let it out. I told myself it was probably just one of us forgetting. Maybe she let the dog out and forgot to lock up, except we don't have a dog. Haven't had one in years. Then I noticed the smell. It wasn't bad, actually, it smelled expensive. Like one of those high-end department store samples. Deep, spicy, with this woody undertone that lingered in the air. It was the kind of scent that clung to things. Masculine. Definitely not mine. I wear a clean, oceanic cologne, the kind you barely notice. This had presence. Whoever had been here wanted to be remembered. I stood there for a moment, still holding my keys. Something in my stomach twisted, but I didn't move fast. I didn't shout or storm through the house. I just started walking slow and steady, like I was looking for something but didn't want to find it. Upstairs, our bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and the first thing I saw was the bed. It was partially undone. My side was neat, untouched. Hers, the side she always sleeps on, was a mess. Pillows crumpled. Blanket shoved down to the footboard like someone had gotten up in a hurry. That wouldn't have meant much on its own. Except, just this morning, she told me she hadn't gotten back in bed after I left. Said she'd stayed up reading in the living room. I stood there, staring at the bed, that weird scent still clinging to my nostrils. And then I saw it. A tissue. Lightly balled up and sitting on her nightstand. At first glance, nothing special. But I noticed the color on it, bold red. Lipstick. The kind you don't wear around the house. The kind you wear when you're dressing for someone, not just yourself. That part might have been innocent. Except Nora doesn't wear that color. Never has. I would have noticed. She's always preferred neutrals, soft tones. She used to joke that bold lipstick made her feel like a clown. I stared at that tissue like it was a grenade waiting to go off. Still, I said nothing. Nora was downstairs when I found her. She was acting normal, almost too normal. She smiled when she saw me, asked how the car wash went, if I wanted something to eat. I asked about the back door, kept my voice casual. Oh, she said, barely blinking. Amanda and Jacob came by. Dropped off that wine from the Christmas thing. I must have forgotten to lock it after they left. Amanda and Jacob. Our neighbors. It sounded reasonable the way she said it. Smooth. Practiced. She even added a laugh, like she was embarrassed by her own carelessness. But something in me shifted. It was like standing on the edge of something deep and dark and realizing the ground beneath your feet wasn't as solid as you thought. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even press. Just nodded, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and went to sit on the patio like I needed some air. That scent, though, it stuck with me. Even outside, I could still smell it. I thought about the last few months. About the way she'd started sleeping later, keeping her phone closer. The new gym membership she'd signed up for out of nowhere, even though she'd always said gyms were a scam. How she suddenly cared so much about her appearance every time she ran errands. I remembered last week when she said she was heading out to pick up paper towels but came home 2 hours later, cheeks flushed, hair pulled up into a neat bun that looked like it had been redone in a hurry. I asked her where she went and she said she ran into an old coworker and grabbed coffee. It hadn't clicked then. But now it was starting to. Nora was always quick with answers. Always smooth. Always just believable enough to not raise suspicion. And maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe it was easier to tell myself she was just going through a phase or adjusting to something or stressed from work. But now? Now I was starting to feel it in my chest, that cold, hollow ache of knowing. Not proof. Not yet. But something. A fracture. She came out onto the patio about 20 minutes later. Asked if I was okay. I smiled. Told her I was just tired. She looked at me for a second longer than usual, like she wasn't sure whether to press. Then she nodded and went back inside. I sat out there a long time after she left, watching the clouds roll across the sky, listening to the wind push the trees around. That tissue. That smell. The door. One small thing could be a mistake. Two might still be explainable. But three? Three's a pattern. And patterns don't lie. After that Saturday, things didn't go back to normal. At least not for me. Outwardly, I played along. I didn't change my tone. Didn't ask any hard questions. I still kissed Nora goodbye in the morning, still made the coffee if I woke up first, still asked how her day was when she got home. But inside, everything was different. It's funny how, once your gut starts talking, your brain goes into overdrive. I started noticing things I hadn't seen or maybe just hadn't wanted to. It was like finding a piece of string sticking out of the wall and realizing it wasn't decoration, it was a seam. And once I started pulling, I couldn't stop. The first thread was the phone. She used to leave it lying around, screen up, battery dying, not a care in the world. But lately she kept it close. Real close. Like it was part of her body. She'd take it with her even just to get the mail. The screen was always face down. Notifications? Silenced. I tested it once, texting her from across the room. Nothing. Not even a buzz. Just a faint light that blinked, then faded. She told me it was to help with her focus, that she was trying to stay off her phone more. I nodded. Said I respected that. But I noticed she never missed a message from whoever was lighting it up after midnight. I'd wake up to the glow sometimes, catch her tilting the screen away like she was shielding it from the light, not me. The second thread was the gym. Nora always rolled her eyes at gyms. Said they were overpriced and full of people pretending to better themselves while staring at mirrors. But 3 months ago, out of nowhere, she signed up. Said she wanted to feel stronger. That she needed a goal. At first, I was proud of her. Encouraged her. Bought her a new water bottle and a pair of noise-canceling headphones. But then the gym started taking up more and more of her time. She used to be home by 6. Now it was closer to 8. Sometimes 9. She'd come in smiling, already showered, hair slightly damp, face pink like she'd been running or laughing. I asked her once if she wanted to go together. Just once. Her answer was a polite laugh and, babe, I don't want to be one of those couples who can't be apart for 5 minutes. That stung more than I let on. Then came the socks. I was folding laundry one Sunday afternoon, something we usually did together, when I found a pair of socks that didn't belong to me. Men's socks. Black Nike Crew socks, size too big for my feet and newer than anything I owned. At first, I figured maybe they were from the dryer mix-up, so I asked her. She barely blinked. Oh, she said. I think Jacob left them here. You know how he kicked his shoes off when they visited last week. Right? Jacob. Our neighbor. But I couldn't shake it. I remember that night. He wore dress socks with his loafers. I remembered because he made a joke about how he hated them. More threads. The car rides became another point of tension, or maybe just curiosity. I started tracking her mileage in my head. She'd say she was going to the grocery store, but the numbers didn't line up. I once saw a small fast food bag tucked under the seat. Chicken tenders. She hates fast food. Said it made her feel bloated. When I asked about it, she blinked, paused a little too long, and said she grabbed something in a rush. Didn't want to bother me with dinner plans? And then there was that weird moment with the shampoo. We always used the same stuff. I'd buy the Costco bottle and we'd both use it, easy, convenient. But one day, I noticed a new bottle in the shower. Smaller, more expensive. Cedarwood and citrus. And not his. I picked it up, smelled it. And there it was. That same scent I caught in the house weeks ago. I asked her about it later. She looked confused for half a second too long, then laughed. I wanted to switch it up. You don't like it. I told her it was fine. But inside, I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere darker. Somewhere suspicious. What made it worse was how normal she acted. Almost aggressively normal. She still made plans with my family, still talked about redecorating the living room, still posted filtered Instagram stories of our cozy Sunday mornings. If you looked from the outside, we were perfect. But perfection, I was learning, could be the best hiding place of all. That's when I started taking mental notes, real ones. Like a detective in my own home. She laughed a little too loud when she texted at night. She closed her laptop as I walked into the room, said it was just a dumb article. She picked up new clothes that didn't match the Nora I knew. More fitted, more styled. She even started wearing perfume again. Not the soft lavender kind she used to love, but something sharper. ****. The tipping point was a phone call. I walked into the kitchen one evening and she jumped. She was on the phone, had been pacing by the window, and when she saw me, her voice changed. Softer, lower. She turned her back and said, "I'll call you back." Then smiled at me too sweetly. "Who was that?" I asked. "Oh, just Amanda. She's been stressing about work." I nodded but didn't say what I was thinking. Amanda's voice didn't sound like that. Later that night, she got up to get water. I stayed in bed pretending to sleep. I could hear the hush of her voice from the hallway, followed by silence, and then the low buzz of her laughter, the one she used to reserve for me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling something cave in. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me being insecure. This was a pattern. The kind that stretches back further than I wanted to admit. I started remembering things I had buried. That time last summer when she said she was going to a bridal shower in another city but didn't take a gift. When she came back, her phone had a new passcode. She said she had dropped it, needed to reset everything. I believed her. The weekend she said she was visiting her sister, but the sister posted pictures from a beach trip in Florida. I asked Nora about it and she said, "Oh, I didn't go. We canceled last minute." I stayed in a hotel downtown to decompress. I believed that too. And maybe I wanted to. Maybe it was easier to trust than to confront the idea that someone you love, someone you've built a life with, is unraveling that life behind your back. But not anymore. There's something about betrayal that makes you sharpen. Your senses become fine-tuned. Every look, every laugh, every absence becomes a clue. I wasn't looking for this. I didn't want to be suspicious. But now I couldn't look away. I had spent months, maybe years, explaining away these things. Telling myself I was imagining it. That relationships go through phases. That maybe I was being too controlling, too sensitive. I questioned myself so much I started apologizing for things I hadn't done wrong. But the difference now? Now I was watching. Really watching. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't want to fix it. I wanted the truth even if it broke everything. Especially if it broke everything. It happened on a Tuesday. A random, cloudy, forgettable Tuesday. And maybe that's why it hit so hard, because I didn't see it coming. Not that day. I had already left for work that morning. Same routine. Shower, black coffee, tie that never sits straight no matter how I knot it. Nora was still in bed, curled up, face turned toward the wall. She didn't say much when I left, just mumbled something that could have been, "Have a good one," or "Leave me alone." At the time, I didn't think twice about it. Halfway to the office, I realized I forgot my wallet. It wasn't even a big deal. Normally, I would have just gone the day without it. But I had a lunch meeting and I couldn't show up like some broke teenager who left his ID in his other pants. So I turned around. I didn't tell Nora I was coming back. Didn't text or call. Figured I'd be in and out in under 2 minutes. I parked down the block because the trash truck was blocking the driveway. Mildly annoying, but I didn't think anything of it. Not yet. As I got closer to the house, I noticed the curtains in our bedroom were drawn. We never closed those during the day, not unless one of us had a migraine. And Nora was fine this morning, or at least she seemed fine. My feet slowed a little on the front steps. That same scent hit me again before I even opened the door. That expensive woodsy cologne. Like sandalwood with something darker underneath. Spicy. Male. The same one that had lingered weeks ago when the back door was left open. I slipped in through the side, careful not to make noise. At the time, I told myself I didn't want to wake her. But if I'm being honest, I think a part of me already knew. Knew something was wrong. Knew I wasn't walking into my house, I was walking into the moment that would fracture it forever. The house was quiet, but not empty. There was music playing soft from the bathroom speaker. Not her playlist. It was some generic chill mix like the kind you'd hear at a spa. I followed the sound, walking slow, each step pulling me deeper into the ache that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. I stood at the end of the hallway. From that angle, I could see into the mirror over the bathroom sink. Not directly, but enough to catch reflections. Movement. 2 shadows. Steam curling up from the shower, fogging the mirror. And then he stepped out. A man. Not a blur. Not a guess. Not an assumption. A man. He was tall. Muscular in that clean-cut kind of way. Short, dark hair. A towel wrapped around his waist. He reached for something near the sink. I saw her bra hanging there. Black lace. The one I'd never seen her wear for me. Beside it, her underwear. The pieces slid into place faster than I could think. Her gym nights. Her laughter in the hallway. The new clothes. The new scents. the distant gaze that had taken over her face when she thought I wasn't looking. I didn't move. I didn't shout. Didn't pound the door open. I just watched, for what couldn't have been more than 10 seconds but felt like a lifetime. Then I turned around, walked quietly back out through the side door, and closed it behind me. No one saw me. Not him. Not her. I got in my car, heart hammering so loud I could feel it in my teeth. Drove around the block, parked by the park, and just sat there gripping the wheel with white knuckles. The betrayal wasn't a question anymore. It was fact. And yet I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in silence. My thoughts came at me like slow-motion shrapnel. So this is what it feels like. This is what being replaced looks like. This is what they mean when they say the bottom falls out. Eventually, I went back home. An hour later. Maybe more. The cologne scent was gone. The bathroom fan was still humming. She was in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Phone in one hand. Sipping tea. She wore yoga pants and a loose shirt. Nothing out of the ordinary. She smiled when she saw me. "Forget something?" she asked, casual, easy, like it was a sitcom. "My wallet," I replied, just as casually. "Thought I left it on the dresser." She nodded, turned back to her tea, and kept scrolling. I went upstairs, picked up my wallet from the nightstand, where I had left it in plain sight that morning, and just stood there for a second. The bed was made. Freshly made. The pillows fluffed, the comforter tucked. Her bra was gone from the bathroom. Her perfume was in its usual spot, untouched. The mirror was wiped clean. Every detail had been reset. Almost. I found a single black hair on the bathroom floor. Not hers. She's blonde. I didn't take it. I didn't need it. I walked back down the stairs, kissed her cheek, and said, "Have a good day." She smiled again and said, "You too, babe." And that was it. That was the moment I realized I was done. Not angry, not devastated, just finished. It's a strange kind of grief when the person you loved becomes a stranger while still wearing the same face. You look at them, hear their voice, see their habits, but something's hollow. Something's missing. Or maybe something's been added. A layer of deceit, a second version of themselves running underneath the one you knew. That night I couldn't sleep. Not for more than an hour. I lay in bed next to her, listening to the sound of her breathing. I wondered if she was thinking about him, if she knew I knew, if she cared. She turned in her sleep once and reached for me. Her hand brushed my arm. I didn't move. She murmured something. My name, maybe, but I pretended to be asleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting the tiny cracks in the plaster, imagining them spreading wider, breaking the whole thing apart. The next morning, I made coffee like usual, set her mug beside the sink. She came downstairs in that same sleepy, soft-spoken way, kissed me on the neck, thanked me, and I just smiled, because now I had something she didn't. I had the truth, the unmistakable truth. And the first rule of dealing with the truth? You don't rush it. You let it settle. You let it shape your next move, slow and deliberate. Because I wasn't going to confront her with rage. I wasn't going to blow it all up in a fit of emotion. I was going to dismantle everything quietly, just like she had. The hardest part wasn't finding out. It wasn't even the image of that man stepping out of the shower or the thought of her whispering his name in the same space where we once made plans for a future. No, the hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Because everything had changed. The morning after I caught them, after I stood silently in my own hallway, watching the reflection of my marriage shatter, I made a choice. Not a loud one, not an angry one. Just a quiet, firm decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to watch, listen, gather. Nora had rewritten the rules the moment she decided to let someone else into our home, our bed, our life. And so I started rewriting mine. First step, control. I opened a new checking account that same week, under a name she didn't know I used in college. I redirected my paycheck, changed the auto deposit settings, canceled the joint credit card. I left just enough in our shared account to keep things normal. Groceries, bills, small talk. I didn't want her to feel the shift. Not yet. She kept up the charade effortlessly. Still called me babe. Still packed my lunch some mornings. Still posted #SundayVibes on her story with filtered pictures of us drinking coffee like we were the last two happy people on earth. It was surreal, but I played along. Smiled when she smiled. Asked how her workouts were going. Let her laugh through her lies. I had learned something valuable. People reveal more when they think you're not looking. The next thing I did was buy a second phone. Nothing fancy, just a prepaid burner. Something I could use without risking my data or giving away my movements. I stored notes, saved receipts, snapped photos of suspicious moments. I logged everything: dates, times, patterns. Nora thought she was keeping secrets. She had no idea I was collecting them. Every Thursday night she claimed to have yoga. Said it helped her decompress. She'd leave around 6, always dressed too nice for yoga. I followed once, discreetly. She met someone at a cafe, not a studio. Same guy. Gray jacket, smug posture. They didn't kiss, but their closeness spoke volumes. That was the night I stopped wondering if I was imagining things. From then on, I didn't trail her. I didn't need to. She had her patterns, and patterns were predictable. I started working late too. Or at least that's what I told her. In reality, I rented a small apartment 30 miles out. Furnished, nothing fancy. Just enough space for me to think, breathe, prepare. I told her my company had expanded into a new region and I'd be needed there on weekends. She didn't ask many questions. Almost like she preferred it that way. I spent my weekends moving small things. Keepsakes, clothes, photos. The sentimental stuff. I backed up important documents, changed passwords, closed old email accounts. I checked the safe we kept in the closet. The spare key was still in the drawer, like always. She never touched it, which told me she didn't think I knew what was coming. But I did. I even copied her phone once. It was risky. I waited until she was asleep, her body curled away from mine. Slid it from the nightstand, mirrored the data. Nothing too invasive. Just enough to confirm my timeline. Messages deleted. Calls cleared. But traces remained, fragments, names, photos cropped just enough to remove a face but not a shoulder. All of it added up to one thing. She was living two lives. And I was only part of one of them. Back at the house, I became a shadow. Not cold, just absent. I stopped offering to cook. Stopped initiating touch. Stopped bringing home the little things she used to love. Pastries from the corner shop. Flowers just because. She noticed, sure. Made offhand comments. You've been quiet lately. Everything okay at work? You seem tired. And I'd smile. Tell her everything was fine. That I was just focused. That I was glad she was taking time for herself. She looked relieved every time. I don't know if it was guilt or ignorance, but she never pushed harder. One night, she asked if I wanted to plan a trip. Just us, she said. We haven't done that in a while. I stared at her for a long second. Sure, I said. Let's talk about it soon. That night, I started drafting the divorce papers. I didn't want to make a scene. I wasn't going to scream in a restaurant or show up at her job with evidence. That wasn't the point. I wanted clarity, not chaos. So I found a lawyer. A good one. I compiled everything I had, documents, photos, timelines. The lawyer barely blinked as I laid it all out. She'd seen it before. You're ahead of the curve, she said. Most people wait until it's a disaster before they come to me. I wasn't waiting anymore. One Saturday, I returned to the house while she was gone. Packed a few things. Left her side of the closet untouched. She wouldn't notice anything missing. I was deliberate like that. I even started paying attention to the mail. She'd been getting new credit offers addressed only to her. I took a photo of one before she shredded it. Made a note of the sender. I wasn't sure if she was hiding new debt or preparing for her own exit. Either way, I needed to stay ahead. By now, I had rehearsed the exit in my head 100 times. But I knew I wouldn't say much. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a confrontation she could spin. I wanted her to feel it in the silence, in the unraveling, in the slow, precise withdrawal of trust and access. I started changing the locks digitally, our Wi-Fi, our shared drives, the smart home account we once used to track groceries and bills. One by one, I revoked her access. She never asked why. Maybe she thought it was a glitch. Maybe she didn't care. I even changed the emergency contact at my doctor's office from her name to my brother's. That was the moment that hit me most: quiet, uneventful, but final. She wasn't the person I'd want called if I got hit by a bus. That told me everything. At night, I'd lie beside her and stare at the ceiling while she scrolled on her phone. I'd wonder if she was texting him while I listened to the hum of the fan we bought together on a road trip. If she was dreaming of him while I was planning a future without her. I stopped picturing us all together. Stopped imagining kids that looked like her. Stopped trying to find reasons to stay. She, on the other hand, kept trying to play normal. Kept making French toast on Sundays. Kept asking if I wanted to watch our favorite show. Once, she even bought me a new hoodie just because. I thanked her. Wore it once. Then folded it neatly into a drawer at the apartment. Every small gesture became evidence not of her affection but of her attempt to keep the illusion alive. But the difference now? I wasn't playing. I was planning. I wasn't going to win her back. I was going to leave so cleanly, so completely, that she wouldn't even realize it was over until she was left standing in the echo of a house she didn't know how to live in alone. And when that day came, I wouldn't be there to explain, because some endings don't need words. They just need distance. It was a Sunday, late spring. Warm enough to eat outside, breezy enough for Nora to complain about the wind tousling her hair. We were invited to dinner at the Harrisons, our neighbors 2 doors down. They were the kind of people who hosted too often and drank too early. Nora loved them. At least, she said she did. I almost declined. After everything I'd been holding in, everything I'd seen and done and planned, sitting at a dinner table and pretending to be her husband felt like an act too big to carry. But part of me wanted to go. Maybe to test how far I could stretch the performance. Maybe because I already knew it would be the last time we'd play this game. Nora wore a soft blue dress. The one she used to save for date nights. Her hair was curled, loose, effortless waves. She smelled like lilac and sugar, but underneath it I still caught the same old woodsy undertone. Faint, almost gone, but not quite. "Do I look okay?" she asked, twirling slightly at the top of the stairs like she was still 19 and unsure of herself. "You look great," I said. I didn't lie. She did. She leaned in to kiss me. I let her. I even kissed back, gently. Just enough to keep the peace. Her eyes lingered on me for half a second too long, as if searching for something she used to recognize. I gave her nothing. The Harrisons had set the table out back, string lights overhead, mismatched cushions on the chairs, a pitcher of sangria sweating in the center like it had something to prove. There were 4 of us, me, Nora, Ben, and Lauren. Just 2 couples pretending everything was fine. For a while, it was polite. Easy. The women talked about brunch places they wanted to try. The men nodded through a conversation about lawnmower brands and the rising cost of lumber. Someone made a joke about HOA rules. I laughed where appropriate. But my mind wasn't there. My mind was on the briefcase I'd left by the front door at home. It was old leather, a gift from Nora years ago, back when she still wrote little notes and hid them in my coat pocket before business trips. Inside it now, tucked between my planner and a book I wasn't reading, was an envelope. Divorce papers. Signed, notarized, ready to go. I didn't bring them to dinner, of course. That wasn't the point. The point was knowing they existed. That they were real. That while she was here clinking her wine glass and throwing her head back in laughter, the foundation she thought she still stood on had already been cut away. We were served grilled chicken, a kale salad, and roasted carrots, organic, locally sourced, from the co-op. Nora complimented everything. "This is amazing, Lauren," she said with a smile so wide it bordered on manic. "You have to send me the recipe." "Of course," Lauren said. "It's so simple." Ben reached for the wine, topping off our glasses. The conversation shifted to marriage. "Of course it did. We've been together 9 years," Lauren said, sighing contentedly. "Can't believe it." 11 here, Nora added, taking my hand across the table. Her palm was warm, damp. "Stable and boring, right, babe?" It was meant to be a joke. One of those playful nudges married couples toss around to suggest comfort and reliability. But the moment she said it, she paused. Just a flicker in her expression. Enough to tell me it didn't come out quite the way she meant. I smiled slowly and raised my glass. "Too boring," I said. Everyone laughed. Except me. I sipped the wine, tasting nothing. I looked around the table at the people we used to share holidays with, birthdays, barbecues. I looked at Nora, her eyes too bright, cheeks a little too flushed. She was trying. Still playing. But something had shifted. She thought we were drifting. That she was still steering. But I was already gone. Back at home, she curled up next to me on the couch. The TV flickered with some baking competition. Her head rested on my shoulder. She sighed, one of those soft, content noises she used to make before sleep. "That was nice," she said. "We should do that more often." "Sure," I replied. I don't think she noticed the way I didn't hold her back. The next morning, I left early. Drove to the apartment. I stood in the small kitchen, making coffee with beans she didn't know existed in a space she had never seen, and realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not even hurt. What I felt now was colder. Cleaner. Like the moment after a storm when the air clears and everything is quiet, not peaceful, but still. Like the silence after glass shatters. I sat down at the tiny table and opened the envelope. Every detail had been reviewed. Financial statements, property inventory, account closures. Custody wasn't an issue, we never had kids. She brought it up once or twice in vague hypotheticals, but I think now I understand why she never pushed. She was never planning for a future. She was planning for an exit. The difference is I got there first. That evening, Nora came home humming. She kicked off her shoes, dropped her bag on the counter, and poured herself a glass of white wine. "Work was a nightmare," she said. "Remind me why I didn't marry rich?" I smiled. "You thought I had potential." She laughed. "Still do." I nodded. She leaned against the counter, watching me. "You've been different lately." "Oh. Yeah. Quieter. More thoughtful. I've had a lot on my mind." She hesitated. "Is everything okay?" I met her eyes and gave her a look I knew she couldn't read. "Everything's just fine, Nora." She didn't press. Just nodded and walked off to the bedroom. That night, I dreamed of silence. Not absence, not loneliness. Just silence. The kind that comes when the performance ends and the actors walk off stage, leaving only the echo of lines spoken too many times. The next day, I took the briefcase with me. Didn't leave it by the door. Didn't tuck it away. Just carried it to the office like any other morning. Nora kissed me goodbye. "Have a good day," she said. "You too." She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know the papers were dated, signed, witnessed. She didn't know I'd requested mediation, not litigation. I wasn't trying to destroy her. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just wanted out with dignity. With clarity. Without the screaming matches and sobbing apologies. Because some things are too far gone to fix. And the moment she joked about our marriage being stable but boring, I realized she didn't miss me. She missed the version of herself she could be around me. The good wife. The smiling hostess. The one with the picture-perfect life and the secret second chapter running behind the curtain. She didn't know I'd already closed the book. I sat in the car for a long time before walking into work. Watching people pass by, coffee cups in hand, headphones on, oblivious to the war some of us are fighting behind polite smiles. I thought about Nora. About the man from the bathroom. About the lies. The soft laughter in the hallway. The socks. The scent. And then I thought about the new apartment, the clean slate, the quiet. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't escape. It was choice. My choice. For the first time in a long time, I was the one writing the ending. And I wasn't going to leave it unfinished. It was a Thursday when I found the box. I was in the garage, trying to clear out some space. Nora had asked, casually like always, if I could help organize things this weekend. I told her I'd get a head start. She smiled like we were still us. Tucked behind an old suitcase was a box I didn't recognize. Dusty, taped once, then lazily reopened. I popped the lid and expected to find holiday decorations or maybe college junk. But it wasn't that. On top were a few postcards. Some of them were addressed to her, some not addressed at all. Beneath them, letters. Handwritten. Neat, looping cursive that didn't belong to me. The first one started with, "Anne, you looked beautiful in blue. You always do." It wasn't poetic. It wasn't even subtle. The man had written pages. About weekends they'd spent together, the mountains felt like they belonged to us, about how hard it was pretending, about how he couldn't wait for a time when things would finally be simple. The letters were dated. One from 2 years ago. Another from 18 months. One of them mentioned me by name. He still doesn't know, does he? You're good at this. I read every one. And when I finished, I just sat there on the garage floor. Hands shaking, but not from anger. From something worse. The realization that while I was planning a future, buying paint samples for a nursery, crunching numbers to afford a second car, she had been busy building something else. The betrayal didn't begin when I saw the man in our bathroom. It started long before that. That Friday morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was still. Nora was curled up in bed, breathing slow, one hand tucked beneath her chin like nothing had changed. I didn't say goodbye. I packed a small bag already half full from weeks of preparation. Grabbed my laptop, my watch, my jacket. Then I walked into the bedroom, slipped off my wedding ring, and set it on the window ledge, right next to the little ceramic tray where she kept hers. I looked at her one last time. She looked peaceful, unburdened. And I left. No note. No final fight. Just the quiet sound of the door closing behind me. I moved into the small apartment I'd rented outside the city. It smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I turned on some music, opened a window, let the silence sit with me, not as punishment but as peace. Nora called 6 times that day. I didn't answer. She texted, "Where are you? Are you okay? Then, please talk to me." I turned off my phone. A month passed. I adopted a dog. Started running again. Filled the fridge with groceries I actually liked. I got used to the quiet. Grew to love it. People ask if I ever confronted her. If I got closure. I didn't need to. The truth was its own closing argument. And in the end, I didn't walk away to punish her.